Welcome to one of UISC newest event from the M.Ed Corner, Capstone Project, first-hand experiences of an M.Ed student. The Capstone Project is the research in education and applied professional inquiry. This event will be hosted by me. I'm Wawa from M.Ed. This is like exactly 1 year of my study in UoPeople. The moderator of the night will be Chandan Kumar. So he is an MBA graduate. He just graduated this April. He's like a master of master. Yeah, he's talking about fashion, merchandising, garment industry, garment manufacturing, and industrial engineering. So if you want to ask about fashion, you can ask Mr. Chandan Kumar. This is like a brief introduction about the one who will moderate our event tonight. So without further ado, I will just let Mr. Chandan to start the event, please.
Okay, let me introduce Mr. Felix. He completed his master's in education and his specialization in teaching elementary, middle and secondary school students. He has total 5 years of experience in teaching. His education is in BSc, honors in the pharmaceutical and health sciences. We are going to learn a lot from him today, as this session is for the education in masters. So he's the one and the best speaker with us who can enlighten us. For myself, I have also finished my master's, but in business administration. So along the way, any questions or experiences, if I have to share, I'll jump in with the permission of Mr. Felix. So let's start. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Chandan, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. So yeah, my name is Felix. I currently live in Indonesia. I'm an Indonesian. And also I have seen some of you here. They're from multiple countries. So that I think that just goes to show how global the community in the University of the People really is. And I really, really appreciate wherever you are in the world right now and whatever time it is for you guys right now, that you're here and you are willing to participate and listen to this M.Ed Corner. Before I begin though, I'd like to say thank you to the University of the People Indonesia student community for allowing me this opportunity to speak to everyone today. And of course, I also have to give credit to Wawa for helping me to edit all of my slides here today. And so if you see that all of these slides look very, very beautiful, that's all her. Simply put in all the content. All right, so before I start, also, I would like to explain on what we're going to, what the content of today's M.Ed Corner will be. So I'm going to explain first the capstone courses in the M.Ed with the University of the People, and then the grading components on the capstone project, and then what the capstone projects are and the details of that. And then later we will have a question and answer session, and then we will have a short Evernote workshop. Because as you know, we have a portfolio that we need to make as part of our capstone project, and we use the Evernote application. So at this point, if you don't have the Evernote application on your device, please download the application now. So later during the workshop, you may follow along with me as I go through the Evernote portfolio creation process. And I do hope that this whole session will be very helpful for all of us. Okay, so just a quick disclaimer as well. So this session, whatever I'm sharing today is largely based on my personal experience. So other people may have different experiences. And as you know, in the University of the People, we get different instructors as well, which usually have different standards and guidelines. So this is largely based on my personal experience with my instructor in the Capstone course. And the guidelines of the courses described in the session were updated as per academic year 2021-2022 term 4, which was just the past term. If there are any updates in this term or in the upcoming terms that may cause slight differences or changes in the guidelines. And finally, a lot of the guidelines here are instructor dependent. So always, always, always check with your instructor on what they wish, what they want you to write, and all of the guidelines, things like that. With that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, so the Capstone course. So the Capstone course is coded EDUC 5910, which is called Applied Professional Inquiry. And this course must be taken as the final course in the degree and cannot be taken with other courses, which means that in that term, in your last term of study, you will only take the Applied Professional Inquiry course. And the term right before the Applied Professional Inquiry course, you have to take the EDUC 5470, which is Research in Education. So these two courses will be taken concurrently. So Research in Education first, and then the next term, immediately the next term will be Applied Professional Inquiry. And it's also good to remember that the passing grade for Applied Professional Inquiry is a B- in letter. In percentage, it's 80%, or in GPA, it's 2.67. So that's always good to keep that in mind. Maybe a lot of us are teachers or educators at school. We are so used to having C as the passing grade, not for this course. It's B-. And let's say, in a worst case scenario, let's say someone, maybe they did not achieve that passing grade. And so the course may be retaken only once if the passing grade is not achieved. Which means that if the passing grade is failed the second time, then essentially the degree will not be conferred and the student is essentially dropped from the degree course. So you only get 2 chances to pass the Capstone course. But it's good to note that this is very different from dropping the course, because if you drop the course, that means it is assumed that you have not taken the course. So failing the course means that after you do all of the assignments, you didn't make the passing grade, then that's the passing grade is not achieved. So it's very different from dropping the course. Of course, if you drop the course, then you can retake the course the next term, and then that is considered as your first time taking the course. Okay. So that is on a quick introduction on the Capstone course. I hope that's clear. If not, please do ask questions to Wawa. Yeah? All right. Next is on the grading components of the Applied Professional Inquiry course. So as you can see here, it is very different from regular courses, where number 1, you have more graded components. And number 2, your regular graded components have decreased significantly. What do I mean? So if you look at the discussion forums and the portfolio activity, those are usually worth, if I'm not mistaken, 15%-ish. Maybe I'm not right, but it's usually more than that, more than 5%. But in the Capstone course, the discussion forum and the portfolio activity is 5% each. Okay, so that's the lowest percentage or the lowest weightage of the entire course. Next, on the grading component, you have the project plan, or what we call the project tracking tool. I will explain that in a bit more details in a few slides. That is worth 15%. And then you have the research and practice portfolio presentation. That is worth 20%. And then the research and practice portfolio itself is worth 20%. So later on during the capstone course, you would have to present your research and practice portfolio on Evernote. So that is what I mean by the research and practice portfolio presentation. Next, you're going to be doing research in this course, and therefore you will be writing a research report. And so that is worth, the draft of that report is worth 15%. And finally, your final research report after you revise it is worth 20% of your grading components. So the good news is that passing the capstone course does not entirely depend on your final research report. It also depends on your project plan, also depends on your research and practice portfolio, both the portfolio itself and the presentation. So I hope that gives you some relief if you are anxious about your research project. Okay, another important part of the Applied Professional Inquiry course is the identity check. So in week 1 of the capstone course, you have to confirm your identity by creating a video. And so in this video, we do have to show our face, our entire face. And the video consists of an introduction of ourselves. So just tell your name, where you're from, your experiences with University of the People. So I put there, briefly share our experiences at University of the People. You can tell a very short story between maybe 15 to 30 seconds. And then you do have to show a government published identity card to the camera and hold it for approximately 10 seconds. And you need to make sure that all information on your identity card is visible. And keep in mind that this identity card has to be government published. So you can use your identity card, you may use your passport, as long as it has your picture on it with your information on it, and it is from the government, it's gonna be fine. And this might sound dodgy or scary to you, like what are they going to do with our data and our identity? But the university really, what they want to do is just, they want to make sure that we are who we said we are throughout the degree course. So it's not like somebody else is the one taking your course. It's you are the one who's taking the course. That's the purpose of the identity check. Moving on. Let's talk about the discussion forums and the portfolio activity on the capstone course. This has the exact same formats as the other courses. Your discussion forum, you need to write the post, and then you need to reply and grade 3 of your friends, and your friends will do the same to you. So that's exactly the same as regular courses. However, the difference is that the discussion forums on the capstone course is only partially required. So if you see there, the required posts on the discussion forums are on weeks 1, 2, 4, 6, and 7, while weeks 3, 5, and 8 are optional for the discussion forums. Which means that in weeks 3, 5, and 8, the discussion forums are not graded. You may post there, and it's usually just a quick reflection questions, but it's not required. It's not graded. So that's up to you whether or not you want to post your discussion there. To be honest with you, I've never posted on the optional ones. I just post on the required ones. And for the portfolio activity, what's nice about it is that there's only one in the entire course, and that is in week 7. There's no other portfolio activity anywhere. So yeah, it's just week 7. Moving on to the project plan. As if you remember, this is part of the graded component in the Capstone course. This project plan is also called the project tracking tool. So I may be using those two terms interchangeably. Please don't be confused if I use either one. So this project plan is done. You have to write this project plan in week 1 of the course, and it is submitted at the end of week 1. And so what it is essentially is it is your plans to complete the 3 projects in the capstone. So the 3 projects in your capstone are your research and practice portfolio presentation, the research and practice portfolio itself, and the applied research and its report. So those are the 3 projects that you have to make your plans for in week 1. It is usually presented on tables or essentially in any other format that you choose. It's up to you. But the university itself provides a template for you that you just have to follow. So you don't have to create one on your own because the university provides it for you. But if you do want to create one on your own, that's fine too. And this project plan is peer assessed in week 2. So once you submit this project plan at the end of week 1, then it is peer assessed in week 2, and you do have to assess 3 of your friends, and that is as per usual. There's a rubric for this that you can follow, which will be provided to you when you do take this course in week 1. So this is what the project tracking document or project tracking tool, what it looks like. This is the one provided by the university. So if you see on the portfolio presentation, for example, you just have to write the steps in the project. What are the steps that you need in order to fulfill or accomplish this project? And then when is the start date of that step, or when are you planning to start that step of your project? And then when do you expect to finish that step of your project? If you do have, if you have completed the project, you can just put X to show that task is done. And then here on the rightmost column, you can put notes, challenges, reminders, issues that you think you might face when you try to complete that step. And as you can see, there are 3 different tables for 3 different projects, but they essentially have the same content. Steps in the project, start date, expected completion date, and then tasks is done. And then you have the notes, challenges, etc. So you see that's the first table is the portfolio presentation. The second table is for the portfolio itself. And the third table is right here for the applied research report. So this is what you need to, this is the project plan once again, which you need to complete throughout week 1. Moving on to the research and practice portfolio. So this is also, we know this as the Evernote portfolio, which all of you taking the M.Ed course should have been making already up to this point, unless you are going to start your first term this term, in which case, welcome. But all M.Ed students, you have created this throughout the degree course. And so if you are in the middle of your degree course, let's say you have taken maybe 6 courses, you're in the middle of it, and you haven't started your portfolio on Evernote yet, you need to start after tonight. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for you when you do actually take the Capstone course. The research and practice portfolio will be presented at the end of week 3. And this is done through an approximately 15-minute video. So it's not a live presentation. The only person that's going to be watching your presentation is your instructor. And so even your friends, your classmates wouldn't see this presentation. The university recommends the application Kaltura to record the presentation, but this is not always required. In my case, I use Zoom to record my portfolio presentation. So I just go on my Zoom meeting room and I lock the meeting room, just start recording. I shared my screen and I just started recording. So I used Zoom entirely for my presentation. It's important to note also that you don't always have to show our face during the presentation. And you may present your Evernote directly or through presentation slides. In the case of the latter, you would have to screenshot your Evernote portfolio and paste it onto slides, either Google Slides or a PowerPoint or maybe some other applications. So you have some flexibility in terms of the presentation, but please do, again, check these requirements with the instructor. Some of my previous classmates had stricter instructors and they required that the students use Kaltura, but I think that's a very rare case. In most cases, you're free to use whatever application you want. And some instructors would also like the students to show their face to the camera during the presentation, but again, not always the case. Good instructors will provide feedback following the presentation to incorporate into our portfolio. So after the presentation, your instructor will watch your video and then a good instructor will give you feedback on what you need to add, what you need to remove, what you need to change in your portfolio. And so if they do that, please do incorporate these feedbacks into your portfolio. And then your research and portfolio itself is due at the end of week 4. So you will have the presentation due at the end of week 3, and then the portfolio itself must be submitted at the end of week 4. So you do have maybe a couple of days to make your revisions to your portfolio, if any. And how you submit the research and practice portfolio is you simply have to share your Evernote portfolio with the instructor. That's all you have to do. Later during the workshop, I'll be showing you how we can do this. So now we are looking at the research and practice portfolio presentation grading criteria. So we're going to talk about how your presentations are going to be graded. And I took this directly from the rubric, which you will receive a handout following this M.Ed corner, and how you will receive that, Wawa will explain to you later at the end. So in your presentation, first, you need to discuss your portfolio, and this is worth 40% of your presentation grade. First, of course, you need to introduce your portfolio by explaining the scope and the organization of the portfolio. What are the categories? What is the depth of each category? That's what you need to explain in the introduction. And you have to explain how you have grown throughout the creation of the portfolio. And this explanation will need to show how you are flexible and adaptable with creating the portfolio itself. So this is why you need to start creating your portfolio very early into your course, a degree course. Otherwise, if you wait till the end, it's very difficult for you to show your growth throughout the portfolio creation. So in your portfolio, you are expected to make categories, or I think the university calls it cubbies. I just call it categories. And so you need to make meaningful connections or relationships between the categories. what is the underlying theme of your portfolio? That is what they want to see. And finally, you need to discuss the design and development challenges and how they were overcome. What are the challenges to creating the portfolio and how did you overcome them? The next part of the portfolio presentation is your reflections on that, which is worth 40% of the presentation grade. Your reflections, your portfolio, I mean, needs to reflect your teaching philosophy. Remember, this is your portfolio. And so it needs to describe who you are as a teacher or as an educator or as a future teacher or educator. And you need to show understanding of teaching and instructional process through your portfolio. And I've mentioned capturing a sense of creator as a teacher. And so finally, you need to also describe how the portfolio can be used in our career. So what the university wants really is for you to create the portfolio, not only as a grading requirement, but also for you to be able to use the portfolio moving forward in your teaching careers. And so you need to be able to describe that. And of course, the presentation quality is worth 20%. This is all about your speech, how you present your portfolio, how confident you sound, your grammar, your English, your pronunciation, whether or not your instructor can understand you and things like that. So that's presentation quality. So among all of these categories, I would say the presentation quality is the most subjective. Why? Because it depends on your instructor, how strict they are or how lenient they may be. While the others is pretty straightforward on the rubric itself. Moving on to the research and practice portfolio grading criteria. So this is not the presentation. This is the portfolio itself. So in the overview of the portfolio, which is worth 40% of your grade, what your instructor is going to grade is the coverage and the richness of your portfolio, which means it's the range and the depth of your portfolio. And then your instructor will also want to see the selection of the artifacts and the labeling of the artifacts, which means the categorization, how you categorize each artifact, as well as the citation. If you take an artifact from another source, like say a journal or a textbook, you need to cite that in APA format. And then 60% of your portfolio comes from the program goals of the Masters in Education. First is understanding of the discipline or disciplines that one teaches. So for example, I teach 7th and 8th grade science. So I would need to include instructional strategies, curriculum, test questions, assessments, things like that in science in my portfolio. Next, you also need to ensure that in your portfolio, you need to show that you understand how curriculum needs to be adapted so that they're appropriate and available to students, your students. And also, you need to show through your portfolio that you know how to create an effective learning environment, and then some instructional approaches that support learning, some techniques of assessing and providing feedbacks, and how that affects learner growth and development, as well as engaging in continuing professional development. So these are the categories that you need to include in your portfolio. On the research and practice portfolio, these are not necessarily the categories or the titles of the categories. That is completely up to you, as long as it fulfills, your entire portfolio fulfills these criteria. So moving on, I do have some notes on the research and practice portfolio that maybe are not presented really well by the university, but In my experience, this is really important. So we need to make sure that that the portfolio is all about who we are as an educator. So don't just randomly pick and choose artifacts just to have them in there, but make sure that they are related to your practice or your philosophy somehow. And make sure that that's clear in the portfolio. I would suggest that you organize your portfolio according to what works best for you. Ultimately, it is our portfolio and we are the ones who will use it in the future. Make sure that we have various types of artifacts in each category because this is graded. So for example, in each course, we're given reading assignments, written assignments, and portfolio assignments. Just make sure that you include some of those in your portfolio. And this is from the course itself. And then also make sure you include artifacts from your personal research in various formats, such as websites and journal articles, from textbooks, from YouTube videos. Feel free to include those in your portfolio, podcasts, many different formats. So just to make sure that your portfolio is rich in format. And also include artifacts from your personal practice in the classroom. For example, if you have conducted projects with your students, then you may want to include that the instructions of those projects, the rubric of those projects in your portfolio, maybe assessment questions, test questions. You may include in your portfolio some of your lesson plans. You may also include that in your portfolio. So by doing this, you will have a rich portfolio with lots of different types of artifacts. So it's not just journal articles. It's not just textbooks. So it's a variety of formats. When I said this is graded, it is part of the richness of your portfolio. So remember that we want our portfolio to be rich. So that's what we mean there. So that was what we just discussed just now was the portfolio, the Evernote portfolio and the presentation. And now I'm going to talk about the applied research and its report, which runs slightly differently. So the applied research and its report is carried out through two different courses. It's through the Research in Education course and also through the Applied Professional Inquiry course. Remember, I said that these two courses will be taken concurrently. So Research in Education first, and then Applied Professional Inquiry. Excuse me. So in Research in Education, you will essentially write approximately 60% of the applied research report. And this is done through the research proposal. And so in Research in Education, you will write the first 3 sections of your report: the introduction, the literature review, and the methodology. And these 3 sections are written as a proposal, which you can then use as the report. You only need to make a few minor changes from the proposal to the report in these 3 sections. And in terms of grammar, the introduction and the methodology, so the first and the third sections, are written in the future tense because it is a proposal. So you will do the research, right? So that's why it's written in the future tense, while the literature review is written in the present tense. And then in the Applied Professional Inquiry course, you will write the last 40% of the applied research report. And so you will only write the last 2 sections, which are the data analysis and results, as well as the discussion and conclusion sections. Now, these are written in the past tense because we have essentially completed the research. So we are reporting what we have done. That's why they are written in the past tense. And so in the Applied Professional Inquiry course, you simply have to change the introduction and the methodology sections, which you have written in the Research in Education course, into past tense. And what's nice about the research report is that the template is provided to us by the university. And in the template, you will see the instructions for each section. So the instructions for each section is given to you in the applied research report. And this is provided to you in the Research in Education course. Finally, we remember that everything in this in the report is written in either the third person or passive voice. So this is a formal report, so we wouldn't want to be using I, we, or the modifications of those pronouns. So just make sure we write in either third person or passive voice or both. Again, I hope that's not confusing, but if it is, remember to ask questions, send your questions to Wawa. All right, so let's move on to the due date summary. So remember I said the report is done in 2 courses, so this is how it's broken down. So you won't have to write everything in its entirety and submit it all at once, especially in the Research in Education course that is divided into a few weeks' time. So let's look on my slides over here. So the introduction is due at the end of week 1. The literature review is due at the end of week 2 of the Research in Education course. The methodology is separated into 3 different parts even for you. So the intervention plan is due at the end of week 3. The data collection is due at the end of week 4, and the research ethics is due at the end of week 5 of the Research in Education course. So what's nice about that course then is that they have split your written assignments so that you complete your 3 sections of your report in 5 weeks' time, basically. For the first 3 sections in the Research in Education course, they are, let me see if I can remember this correctly. If I'm not mistaken, they're peer-reviewed, but maybe if one of you have taken that course, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. But for these first 3 sections, they're peer-reviewed. Your final proposal, which means from your introduction to your methodology, all 3 sections must be submitted in the Research in Education course at the end of week 7. So from week 5, you have 2 more weeks until you need to submit your proposal. Now, that's all for the Research in Education. Now, for Applied Professional Inquiry, your report draft, which includes the data analysis and the discussion and conclusion sections, is due at the end of week 6 of the Applied Professional Inquiry course. Why? Because the university essentially wants you to focus on your portfolio first, get that out of the way, and then focus on your research report. So you simply have to write your last 2 sections, remember? So you don't have to write so much, and you're given 2 weeks for that. Afterwards, after you submit your draft, you will get feedback from your instructor, and you will be asked to make revisions to your report. And so your final report with the revision is due at the end of week 8 of the Applied Professional Inquiry course. What you see here is a nice wide range of time for you to complete the entire report. So you don't have to rush everything at the very end. And this gives you ample time to actually do your research, apply your intervention in your classroom or in your colleague's classroom, get your data, analyze, and write the report. So you'll have more than enough time for that if you do manage your time well for this. Here are some notes on the applied research and the report. So first, please make sure to have a topic or an intervention strategy in mind before starting the research in education course. And this is because the introduction of the proposal, if you remember, is due at the end of week 1. So if you don't have a topic in mind yet by when you start research in education, then you would have to rush a little bit. So it would be better for you to have the topic, what you want to research or what your intervention may be, have that before this course. Just to share my experience a little bit, my topic on the applied research is on assessments, particularly cumulative assessments, and how that impacts the students' achievement as well as motivation. So that was my topic for the capstone. Also, you would need to prepare at least 2 research questions, and 3 research questions is the recommended maximum. So if you go more than 3, then it might be challenging for you to complete the research. If you have less than 2, then it's inadequate, or the university sees it as inadequate. And it's also important to note that the questions can be both quantitative and qualitative, or either one of them. So you have some options there. For mine, they're both quantitative. Because for me, numbers make more sense. They're more objective. So I use both as quantitative data. And please remember that our intervention strategy must be applicable to classroom scenarios. So you can apply your intervention strategy to your own classroom or to a colleague's classroom, or maybe a classroom in another school, although that is not really recommended. So yeah, you do have to conduct the intervention yourself. And unlike most applied research projects, this is an individual project. So make sure that your topic and your intervention plan is doable to be done by yourself. And we need to remember that the length of the intervention and the data collection depends on our topic. And we need to make sure that it fits the time frame of 1.5 courses. What do I mean by 1.5? This is because you can start the project, or you can start the research, the intervention, even during the research and education course. So you don't have to wait until the applied professional inquiry course to start your intervention. You can essentially start in research and education. Or you know how we get 2 weeks off in between courses? You can start then as well. So the university provides no restrictions on participant demographics. It can be male, female, whatever age. Although K-12 is recommended, it can be whatever age. Boys, girls, whatever socioeconomic status. That's all not required by the university. So that's up to you. But you please check with our instructor on the minimum number of participants. In particular for mine, she didn't want us to have less than 25 participants. So she wants at least 25. So yeah, just check for minimum of participants. Moving on. In research in education course, you will create the informed consent forms for your students' parents and the building supervisor of the school where you will conduct the research. So why do we need to do informed consent? That is concerned with the ethics of research. You will learn about that in the research in education course. But And why is it our students' parents and not our students? Because our students are underaged. So we need to get consent from their parents for them to participate in our research. For the building supervisor, that is usually the principal of the school. For mine, I just sent it to my principal because I applied my intervention to my own classrooms. So I just sent my informed consent to the principal, to my principal. And these informed consent will be inserted into the final report as appendices. So the building supervisor's consent, what you have to insert into the appendix is the signed copy. So once your supervisor signs the copy, you need to scan it and include it in your final report as an appendix. And for your students' parents, you don't have to send all of the signed copies for that. Just send one as an example. For the intervention and data collection methods, you also need to insert those into the report as appendices. So for example, if you use questionnaires, assessment questions as your data collection methods, you need to insert that into the appendix. If your intervention is also something written, then you also need to include that in your appendix. For example, for mine, it is cumulative assessments, right? So it's in a form of assessments, instructions. So I included that in my appendix. Here's something that I found quite frustrating actually, is that the standards might actually change between the research in education and the applied professional inquiry. And that's because you will most likely get two different instructors for these two courses. And so the standards of your instructor in research in education might be different from the standards of your instructor in the applied professional inquiry. So I found that slightly frustrating, but it was still doable. Finally, the entire report from start to finish, including the title page and references, but excluding the appendices, must be between approximately 15 to 25 pages in length. Approximately means you can go maybe 14, maybe 26. But again, do check with your instructor because some instructors might not even consider this length a requirement. Like for mine, she said, I'm going to lift all the restrictions of the research report. So I wasn't even restricted to the page limit. So just for your, to get an image into your head, my draft of the report was 53 pages long, including the appendices. And then my final draft after the revision was 74 pages long. So you see that it's like so far away from 15 to 25. So please do check with your instructors later on. All right, so let's move on to question and answers. So that is actually all that I would like to share with all of you on the Capstone course. So I hope that it's clear. If not, now is the time for you to ask questions. So I'm gonna give it back to Wawa to deliver the questions. Go ahead.
Okay, so for now, thank you, Felix, for the presentation. It's very informative. I've received quite plenty questions. And the first question, if we failed the first time for the Capstone, Capstone course, can we still use the research at the second time we take the course, reusing the previous research? Can we do that?
Yes. So your research from the research in education course that carries to your professional inquiry. So you can use that. You can reuse that. Yes.
Okay. For the second question, there are two questioners who asked the same question. When we change the introduction and methodology in the proposal to the report, do we just need to change the grammar or like a whole paraphrasing of the writing?
Okay, so the grammar is one, of course, from future to past, from the future tense to the past tense. In terms of the paraphrasing, this is also important because APA, I think Wawa, you remember the number? Is it 10% of the
quotation.
So 10% of the entire paper, you are allowed to use direct quotes. Everything else needs to be paraphrased. However, some instructors, like mine, was a bit stricter. So she only restricted my class to 5 direct quotes in the entire paper. So do check with your instructor on these requirements. Everything else needs to be paraphrased.
Okay, so it's not just about changing the grammar, but we change the whole thing. So we paraphrase it and use the correct grammar for the report.
So from your proposal to your report, you do not have to paraphrase yourself. No. So you can just change the grammar. But if you, in the discussion forum, in the first week of the professional inquiry course, you're asked to post your entire proposal there. So the first discussion forum in the professional inquiry, it's just your proposal, in which your instructor and your classmates will provide feedback for you. So that is when you can make revisions to the first 3 sections of your report. Okay. If that makes sense.
Okay. So at the end, there are some rules that we need to follow. Depends on our instructor, like the direct quotations. As for the report, for the proposal to the report, we do not have to entirely paraphrase it. We can just change it into the grammar needed. Like that? Can I conclude it like that?
That is correct.
Okay.
But again, please do check with your instructor. If they told you to paraphrase from your proposal, then you need to paraphrase. In my case, that wasn't a requirement.
Okay. Next, so when exactly do we send the video of our Evernote, on which week?
Okay, so the video on the Evernote, which is the presentation of the portfolio, is due at the end of week 3.
So it's quite near at the beginning, right?
That's right, which is why, once again, if you haven't made your portfolio presentation or portfolio yet, please start tonight.
Thanks for the advice. Okay. Is it possible to include our personal past survey, which we did before enrolling in UoPeople? Example, the survey that they did in 2017, or like before they start research and education.
So this is for data collection, I'm assuming. So as far as I know, that is allowed. And then it would be actually better if you can compare the data from 2007, let's say, to later, whenever you're taking the research. That would be much better, actually. That way you can have a pre-test and a post-test, which would make your research, your results more valid. So as far as I know, it is allowed.
Oh, but we cannot use that as our, like, saying that it's our current research, but it's like a past data to compare to what we are going to do. Do you mean it like that?
You can say that you used it previously. That is allowed. So for example, in my case, I went even further and I used a survey that was published by somebody else. So I just cited the person's name. So, I mean, of course, I didn't plagiarize because I gave credit to the person who actually published the survey. But it was from a published journal article. So it makes the questionnaire more valid, I would say. And when it's from a published journal, so it increases the credibility of
Right.
your research. Yeah.
True. Okay, for the next one, I focus on adult learners. They are over 17. So should I still ask their parent consent? I don't know the rules in Indonesia. How about the consent's age?
Okay, so basically the consent form is needed, or whether or not, however old the students are, you need to give them the consent forms. It's just a question of whether you give it to them directly or to their parents, right? So if they are considered an adult in your country, then you give it directly to them. I think in Indonesia it is 17 years old when you get your ID card. I don't know what the law is, but my students were 13 and 14, so they're definitely they're definitely underaged. So if they're considered an adult in your country, then feel free to just send it to them directly. If they are not, then you need to send it to their parents. But again, my instructor at the time wanted us to use the rules in the US, which means that adults start at age 21. So even if they're considered adult learners, if they are 18 or 19, they're still underaged in the US. So some instructors would want to make up their own rules. Maybe they're so extra. But yeah, so just check with them.
But in another note, I think if the student is still in a school, we still need their parents' consent and their school consent, or maybe parents. If they're a student in a university, it's probably a different case.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And wait, I'm collecting questions. Okay. Next. When do we need to start the research? When do we need to start the research? I mean, probably this means like writing the proposal, maybe. Yeah. I'm not sure with this question. Maybe Padendi can type it again. How long do we need to finish the report? I guess that's already in the presentation, but it's okay. You can probably make it clearer about when.
Yeah, maybe that wasn't clear. So let me answer that second question first. So if you're asking for the report, when you start the applied professional inquiry course, you have 6 weeks to write the report, the entire report. So the report itself is due at the end of week 6. So you have 6 weeks. That's when you start the applied professional inquiry course.
Okay. How long do we need to finish? 6 weeks. Okay. And then how we manage the different standards if we have different instructors between the 2 courses, whom we have to follow, the research in education or from the applied professional inquiry?
Okay, that is a very good question. So since your final grade is from the applied professional inquiry, I would follow that instructor in the applied professional inquiry. Yeah, because in my experience, the standards were so different between the 2 courses that I had to revise a lot actually. But I followed my instructor in the applied professional inquiry, because there's no use arguing that my instructor in the previous course said this, you know. So there's no point in arguing that. Might as well just follow your new instructor.
Okay. Can I use a slip of my ID since I am yet to get the ID card? Probably there's some place that have not get an ID card yet.
A slip of your ID. Is
like
this like the temporary
from school? Yeah, the employee ID card, like that. Can we use that? Or
according to the instructions of the data or the identity check, no, because it has to be government published. So either your ID card, maybe your driver's license would still be allowed, your
Passport.
passport. Yeah.
Yeah. So and make sure you have either of those three.
Yes. So a quick note on that for Indonesians, if you still are waiting for the EKTP and you still have the temporary large piece of paper, I don't think that's allowed for your people.
Okay, so it's better to use our passport if we have one.
Yes.
Okay. For the next question, what was the most challenging thing about the research process? This is a good question.
That is a good question. And I would have to think about that for a minute.
Or it's too easy for you.
No, there's just a lot of challenging parts. I guess in my experience, it would be collecting the consent from the parents. Why? Because some of them are old school and they even need their children's help to access their emails. And so at the time, my school was at the hybrid format. So some of them were at school, some of them were at home. So it was just a huge headache for me. But I eventually asked all of my students to just, hey, let your parents know. Your homework for tonight is let your parents know to fill in the consent form for me. So eventually I got all the consent, even though it was very last minute. I think it was the day of my intervention. So that was slightly a headache. But yeah, I got through it.
The next question. Oh, this is probably a lot of our M.Ed students' question as well. What happens to those who are not currently teaching? Are we to use our formative years as students for the reflection or the other way around?
I think this is talking about the portfolio, right?
If this is about reflection, I mean, this is probably related to the research, like if we are not doing must we ourselves do the intervention, or we can ask our teacher colleague to do that? Or we're not teaching in a school, like a formal school, so how do we do that?
Right. Okay, I get it now. So if you're not a teacher yet, for the research, you do have to do the intervention still. So you can go to your alma mater, or you can go find another school. That's completely fine. Or if you know your friends who are currently teachers at a school, you can go ahead and ask them if you can do research at their school. But it is mandatory that you perform the intervention and collect the data. And even if you're not the one who performs the intervention, that is fine. So you can you can work together, you can collaborate with the classroom teacher to implement the intervention. However, you do have to be there to observe the intervention being implemented, because you need to make sure that the intervention is according to what you have written or what you have proposed. As for the data collection, if you ask your colleague or your friend, your teacher friend, to apply the intervention, then you would have to interview your that friend for your data collection. So just a quick note on that. But I would suggest just do the intervention yourself. If you're not a teacher, just borrow somebody else's class for a day or something. Yeah, that would be better for you, I think.
Okay, so even though you are not an active teacher or just like an aspiring one, you are about to be a teacher, or you are just taking this for your family education, but you still have to get to do the intervention in a classroom, like that?
Yes.
Or no? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. I do have a case though. I do have a case. I think it was in my class, or maybe it was a teammate from a previous group activity. But this person basically teaches homeschool, and so their students are their kids. So it's kind of difficult to do a certain intervention. So what this person did was she got together with other homeschooling parents or homeschool teachers, and so they got the data together that way. So there's lots of different ways you can get the intervention done and data collection.
That's very interesting, actually. Like, maybe for parents who are not teaching in a school, they can gather their children and create like a small classes and create some lesson plan like that. So you are not exactly necessary to teach in a formal school or informal anything under an institution like that. So I think the intervention could be creative, but again, you must make sure with your instructor, just make sure so you won't go to the wrong path.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Now the next question. If you are the principal of the school, who then sign your form? Oh, for the consent form. Yourself?
Okay, that's a good question. So if you have, as a principal, if you work under a school board, then the school board members or the head of the school board will be the one who sign your consent form as a building supervisor. Or if you have, let's say you are a principal and then you have a head of school, then the head of school will be the one who signs your consent form. I think principal is the highest, yeah. So it's not the highest, right? So I think you are responsible to someone else.
Okay. This course will immediately, it would not appear like in the middle in our courses, right? Like after we achieve all the requirement, like doing all the core courses, elective and specializations. So the research and education will come at the end. It will appear at the end. We can just take it at any any terms for the research and education.
Right. So for the research and education, so it has to be taken the term right before.
Capstone.
So let's say if you're taking the applied professional inquiry in term 4, then you have to have taken the research and education in term 3. So it needs to be concurrent according to the catalog. For research and education, you are allowed to take that with another course still. But not for professional inquiry. So for me, I took the research and education with child development. So I took those two courses together. And then the following term, which was last term, I took the applied professional inquiry.
Oh, this is a good question. I guess, can we take a break between the two courses? Like this term, we take in research and education, and then we took an LOA, and then we do the applied professional inquiry.
Yes, that is okay.
Yeah. Allowed, okay. Just like how we can drop after taking it. So I think it's okay as well.
Exactly.
Okay, is there any more questions that haven't been answered yet?
There is one question that came into my chat box, so
okay.
I'll just read that out.
To you.
Yeah, to me directly. So the question was, do we create the audio and snapshot differently for the presentation? And the answer to that question is up to you. So if you would like to record your audio separately from your the snapshot of your portfolio, fine. Sure. Although I don't think I would recommend that, because usually it's kind of hard to match the audio with the video. I would just record everything all together. So I think that would be more preferable.
Okay, I think we can move on to our next session. It's about the Evernote Mini-Workshop, which probably many of us are still confused about how to make a portfolio using this Evernote, even though it's already provided in Moodle, like giving example for the research and practice portfolio, but somehow it's still confusing. So, okay, which part we still need to put inside it? How do we need to present it? Can we make it colorful? Can we, or we just have to make it monotone like that? Okay, so I will just let it to Felix again to start the workshop, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Wawa, for leading the question and answer session. So at this point, if you still do have questions, you may send it to Wawa again, and then maybe we will, if we still have time later, maybe we will
continue the Q&A.
Yeah, we'll continue the Q&A. Yeah. So right now, before I start the workshop, I would like to ask everyone to have your Evernote app this ready. Is what you will see when you first start your Evernote on a new account. If you have been using Evernote to take notes on other projects or just to take notes in general, then you shouldn't see this anymore. Instead, you should see a list of your notes already, or a list of your notebooks. So this is what you will see if it's new.
By
also
the way,
important to note, yep.
I remember a previous question, like when you register this, you can choose the free one instead of the paid one. So you do not have to be worried about you have to pay the premium version. You can just use the free version.
That's right. Thank you, Wawa, for that. And I'm using the free version. And what is the telltale sign of that? There is the upgrade button on the bottom left corner. That tells you that I'm using the free version of Evernote. Also important to note that I am using my PC at the moment, and what I'm sharing with you is the PC or the computer or laptop version of Evernote. So maybe if you're using an iPad, maybe it might look slightly different. Maybe it looks the same, but generally it should be quite similar. Okay, so when you first start a new account, Evernote gives you a first notebook already for you. So you don't actually have to create a new notebook. You can just use that first one. So if you have this first notebook, what you can do is just right-click and then rename it. So you can rename it as research and practice portfolio. And then you can put your name. You can put also the M.Ed. That's up to you. So let's just go with that. So one more time, if you are renaming, you can right-click on the notebook and just click rename, and then it will let you rename the notebook. And in that notebook, you have been also given one note already for you. And that is called, at the moment, it's called Untitled. Of course, you can always rename it. So let's see what happens if you click the notebook. Okay, so if you click the notebook, what happens is it goes to this format. Okay, and okay, I don't want to do that. Okay, so it sends you to this format by which you can start making your portfolio. So what you do first, maybe, if you can start with the title of the category. So each note on Evernote, each note will be your category or your cubby, as the university calls it. So let's say this first note will be the category of your educational philosophy, right? So you can put the title as educational philosophy, right? And then you can start writing. Let's say you can start with with the short reflective introduction. And at the top here, you may change your font. You can change your font size. You can add colors to your font. That's up to you. You can put a bulleted list, a numbered list, a checklist, whatever you want to do. usually if it's available on Microsoft Word or Google Docs, most likely Evernote will have that as well. Even Evernote has strike through and super and subscripts. So yeah. So let's say you start writing your reflective introduction. Okay, so let me just put that right for now. And what you can do to separate your sections is you can add a divider. Okay, so let's say you want to separate this and you want to include your first artifact. So what you can do is you can click that plus button and then you can click the divider and then it will give you a line. And that separates your introduction with your first artifact. So let's say for the first artifact, you can Control B to bold as usual on Google Docs. So for example, you start with your course, the name of the course where you got the artifact from. Let's say that's the name of your course. And then the date, which is today is June 18th, 2022. And then it's easier also for you to put the name of your instructor. Okay, let's say that's your instructor. Now what you can do is put the artifact. Let's say you want to insert a journal article. Okay, so you download your journal article into your computer. And then what you can do is just insert and then attachment. And then it'll let you attach files. You can even add an audio recording of yourself explaining the artifact if you choose to. So you can be as creative with this as you like. You can even present your Evernote on a table, for example, or your portfolio on a table. So let's say instead of using these as an introduction, you want to use a table, go ahead. Yeah, that's your choice. Or for journal articles, most likely they'll be online, right? I don't think any of us here subscribe to a printed journal periodically, right? So most likely it'll be online. So what you can do as well is insert the link. So that would be on the right side here. You can click more and then you can click insert link. So you can add a link to the journal article. So let me stop here for a moment and let you ask any questions. Yes, Wawa.
Okay, so this is a question that I am also wondering because I use stacks too. So would you recommend using the stacks and instead put of each categories into a separate notebook? Because I use that too. So a stacks with many notebooks inside, I use that too. Can we use that, or are you just recommending us only using notebooks?
Okay, so that's a very good question. So that's actually one of the things that I changed. So before I did this version, I did it using stacks. Yeah, but the reason that I changed it to this version is because if you do it in stacks, you have to make sure that you share each of those notebooks with your instructor. So I'm not saying that it's not allowed. It would just be more taxing for you to share each one to your instructor. And I've heard also from one of my classmates in the previous course, in this course, that when she shared her stack, each of the notebook to the instructor, it went in random order. So it wasn't in the order that she wanted. And she didn't know how to fix that. So just be careful with that. Because as far as I know, you can't share the entire stack directly with anyone. You have to share the notebook. But please do check again. If you can share the stack, then why not?
Oh, can you give an example of how to make a stack? Because they're really newbie here that doesn't understand what a stack is.
Okay, sure, I can do that. So how do I want to do this?
Create another notebook.
Yeah, probably that would be better. Yeah. So to create another notebook, maybe that was a question earlier. So to create another notebook, you can click the plus sign over here and it will let you create a new notebook. Or if you click the drop down button there's also that green button that tells you how to, that you click it, it creates a new notebook. Okay, so let's say this new notebook is titled Instructional Strategies. Okay, and let's see if I remember how to create a stack. There it is. So
add to stack.
Yep. So what you do is you right click and on the notebook and you put add to stack. And if you don't have a stack ready, so the word stack just basically means a stack of notebooks. So if you can imagine, in like if it's a real printed copy, it's just a stack of your notebooks. That's what a stack means, really. So if you would like to create a stack, so just add to stack and then create a new stack. And then you can name the stack. So let's say the name of the stack is Research and Practice Portfolio. Okay, so you see there's the stack. Now the icon for a stack and a notebook is different. For a stack, you will actually see an icon that looks like a stack of notebooks. That tells you that that is a stack. While if you just see the cover of one notebook as the icon, that's a notebook. And so what you can do, so here in the stack, if you click the drop-down button, you will see that my first notebook is already part of the stack. So if you want to add to the stack, what you do is you right-click the instructional strategies and you add to stack. Now, since you already have your first stack ready, so just put them there, and there you go. It moves your second notebook into the stack.
So in my experience, I use stack for each courses. It's just to divide my written assignment, discussion assignments like that. So I have all the notebooks inside my stack, and then I will have a research and practice portfolio inside the course. So it's like include in the stack. But for Capstone Project, can we just share the notebook without disturbing the stack? Like only like on at the latest course, like we put the stack as Capstone Project and we put the notebook as research in education and applied professional inquiry. Can we just share the applied professional inquiry instead of the whole stack, or we cannot?
So you're saying that your entire research and practice portfolio is part of a stack, but but it's in one notebook. Is that what you're
no
saying?
So my stack, my current stack is courses, so
Right.
5240, and it has notebooks with my written assignments, my research and practice portfolio from my first works, like that. So for the capstone, can I make one stack with two notebooks, the research in education and the applied professional inquiry? So inside that one notebook, applied professional inquiry, I just share that notebook. Can I do that? Or when I share it will be like the whole thing inside my Evernote. It won't be like that, right?
Right. So you can't share a stack, right? So
Yeah.
what you can share is the notebook.
Okay.
So you just want to make sure that you share the right notebook with your instructor.
Okay.
So yeah. So for example, you can see here, if I right click on this notebook, let's say, okay, or let's say I right click on this notebook, you can share your notebook. So you just enter the email of your instructor. You share that notebook. But when I try that with the stack, when I right click on the stack, there's no option for me to share the stack. So what that means is you can't share a stack, but you can share a notebook. Also, if you prefer to use the stack, then you can also create another notebook directly by right-clicking the name of the stack. If you see the first option, it says create notebook in research and practice portfolio. And that'll allow you to create a new notebook. You just have to put your name. Let's say this one is about assessment, and then that's it. You created a new notebook.
Okay. So there's another question here. So for the stack question, I guess it's already clear. You only can share the notebook instead of the stack. This is a good question. I think many of the end of their academic journey is questioning about this. Talking about arranging tour Evernotes, your Evernotes and dates. What happened if you have not been updating on Evernote and have just one course left? Is there any hope of creating a rich Evernote in like 2 or 3 months? Anxiety is killing me right now. Is there any hope of ever making it through the Educ 5910? Please, Felix.
So yes, you do have hope, okay? So you do, the hope is still there, it's still alive, okay? You're fine, you're gonna be fine. It's just that you do have to catch up to make sure that your portfolio is ready. If you do need more time, I would suggest taking one term off between the research in education and the applied professional inquiry, just so that you can get your portfolio as ready as it can be. Then you can use that 2 months to really just focus on your portfolio. If that is what you want to do, go ahead. But if you feel like you have time now, yes, you still have your chance. You have a huge chance actually to create a rich portfolio. And by rich, we really mean just different types of artifacts. It's not just journal articles. It's not just all written assignments. So you just want to have a variety. That's all it means by a rich. So yes, you still have time. You still have hope. So yeah, just keep it alive. You got this.
Oh, this one. You said, Felix said that you can put your portfolio in a table. How do you put your portfolio inside a table? There's a question like that.
Okay, so I'll show you that right now. So let's go back to this notebook. Oh, by the way, before I do that, so if you look on my left side here, my cursor, you can remove a notebook from the stack. So let's say if you're using stacks and then you're looking at it and you're like, I don't like this anymore, then you can kick it out from the stack. So for example, if I want to remove this one from the stack, then I'll just right click and remove from stack. And then it's going to remove it from your stack without disturbing anything inside. So that's, I think that's a neat option for you as well. So going back to the tables question. So what you can do is, let's say you insert a table. Okay, and then of course you can always adjust the number of rows and columns by right-clicking on it, and then you can insert row below. Then you can, so it's very, very similar to Microsoft software or Google apps that you use. So what you can do is, for example, you can, let's say the title for this one would be the course. This one would be maybe the artifact. And this one would be the reflection. So this way, what you can do is you put the name of the course at the top row, and then you put your artifact on the second row, and then you put your short reflection on the third row. So if that's preferable to you, fine. But just remember, if it is not yours, if you take an artifact from the internet or anything that's not yours, please, you need to cite it in APA format. So maybe for the artifact, you can put it, instead of just the link, just put it directly in APA format. So by APA format, I mean just like how you would write in references section in your written assignments. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Another question that frequently appears, Parley. Can we use another app instead of Evernote, for example, Google Drive or Google Docs?
Yes, you may. I think the guidelines from the university allows for that. Although I don't really recommend Google Drive, just because of the way that Google Drive arranges your files. It's actually quite different from Evernote. So I don't really recommend it, but it is allowed. Unless your instructor says no, then you don't have any options. So again, do check with your instructor on that.
Okay, one last question. I guess actually we only have 2 more minutes before we end the session, but and we still have a long journey, I guess. But this one is a good question for the last one, and you can show this for us as well. If I remember very well, the guideline said we should divide our Evernote into 3 components. How does your work reflect those components? The reflection, the portfolio, and the practice. Maybe you can just give us our direction.
Okay. So that's very, it's pretty straightforward actually. It's just that it's supposed to be obvious in in your portfolio, whether it is research or practice. And the reason for that is research has something to do with what you look for, such as maybe if you put a written assignments, that's research. If you put a journal article, that's research as well. YouTube videos are also included as research. Practice, on the other hand, refers to what you have done or what you are doing in the classroom. So for example, your own lesson plans, that's practice. Your own test questions, that's also practice. Maybe a document that you create with your professional learning communities, that's also practice. So the line between research and practice is usually it's pretty clear. Now there are certain cases where it's not. For example, if you use a test question or you use test questions that you have researched online, then it's a fine line between research and practice, because it's research because you have done research on it, but then it's also practice where you use it in your classroom. Now, that is why I did not really define clearly which one is research and which ones are practice. That's because of this, sometimes of this overlap that occurs. And in addition, that aspect is not really graded according to the rubric. In my experience, I don't think you have to worry so much about that. So let me show you my own. And so what you can see there, if it's a written assignment, like I said, it must be research. But then I also put there, I can use either of these progressive models of discipline. So this first one is about 2 models of discipline, assertive and cooperative. And that's the research part. The practice part is I can use either of these progressive models of discipline in my classroom depending on the specific needs of the classroom. So what you see there is both research and practice into one artifact. So that is why I could not specifically define which one is research and which ones are practice. So I hope that
it will overlap.
It will overlap most of the time, because throughout my master's journey, what I've discovered is that I use a lot of the techniques that I research for the course, let's say to create written assignments, whatever, in my classroom. So there's no way for it not to overlap in that sense.
True. Okay. Okay. So it's actually we've already passed. It's 9:33. Do you have still other tips that you want to share, or there's still stuff that we need to know?
Yeah, I just want to show you how you can, maybe if you don't know yet, just how to create notes, because just now I didn't really show how to create notes because it was there already. So that one will be pretty short. So for this one, to create a new note, so let's say your first cubby or your first category is educational philosophy and you want to create a new category, then you just have to add new note. It's that simple. And then you just put number 2, instructional strategies. That's it. And what's neat about this, about using this format, is you just have to share it once, right? And it will share if you share your notebook with your instructor, your instructor will be able to see all of your notes.
All your notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All at once. If you're using stacks, again, you have to share it one by one. So if you have, there might be, it increases the risk of you forgetting to share one of the notebooks. So I would recommend just using this format. But again, to each their own. So you can click the sort options, and then you can change what it's sorted by. And so your instructor will only see this new arrangement that you have made. I think that's what I wanted to share. So if I didn't really go into the details on Evernote that you hoped for, I apologize. Not only because of the time, but that's also not the purpose of the workshop. The purpose of the workshop here is just to introduce Evernote, especially to those who haven't used it yet. Regardless, I do hope this has been very useful for everyone.
I want to move from stacks to just Evernote. Will it unstruck my previous work? Do I need to create a new notebook to that? So when you unstack it, the notebooks, will it be like messy, or it will just, or you have to do a new one?
So let's try that. So you see here in the stacks, I still have 2 notebooks, right? So if you just remove from stack, it will just go out of the stack. There you go. And once your last book from the stack is removed, it will automatically delete your stack for you. So it's not messy per se, but what you have to do is you have to copy and paste your from the notebook to your final research and practice portfolio.
And it will be sorted by their title, I guess, because it's not sorted by the date you make it, it's by the title.
Correct.
That's probably will be messy for you, because maybe you put the stack, the notebook in the stack with different titles, so you might want to rename it before you remove it from the stack. Right. Probably that's a tip.
That's why I recommend using numbering.
All right.
So you can actually sort this by title, and it will arrange by numbers also. So that's helpful. So that's why even if you use the stacks, I recommend you use numbering. So if you decide later to not use stacks anymore, and just use one notebook, when you unstack your notebooks, it should go in the numerical order.
Okay, this is a good one too. I guess we need to ask you this. How many artifacts do you have per category? So how many? Is there a requirement for that?
So that is actually very subjective in terms of instructors. Oh. So I can't really answer that question. But if I were the instructor, I would say 10 each in each category. So
total is 30 artifacts.
If you have 3 categories, that is.
3 categories, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. Oh, okay. I think about the Evernote workshop, it's pretty much clear in my opinion. Okay. Probably because I already have an Evernote, but for noobs, if you're still confused about how to use Evernote, I suggest you to just click on the Moodle. There's a link to go straight to the tutorial, and there's many other tutorials in YouTube that you can get through. In here, we also have Chandan, who already passed a capstone. So probably can you compare what's the difference between our capstone with yours? Do you also use like a difficult Evernote sorting like us, or maybe you have like the span of your research is the same like us, or is there any difference?
I think it's completely different.
Yeah, completely
because
different.
When I compare with my MBA and MBA is quite very easy. If after seeing Mr. Felix what he tried to explain, MBA is very straightforward and easy. I can say that. Maybe it can be because of my management background, but after today's session, I can say even the newbies who doing first time, it will be much more easier.
So for
So guys, if you
the span of the research, do you also
Yes.
have like a short time, only like 1.5 course, or you have longer time, or you can just do it in 2 weeks? How long is your research?
At the first week, we need to choose a project for the research. So one of the established company or some of the case study inside the learner guide, you can choose one, and along the way you need to research about one of the management strategy. It can be related to account or HR or sustainability, any kind of strategy you want to choose. And then you need to thoroughly research what they are doing now and what you can propose as a management student. And along the way, instructor work with you. So always give the feedbacks how you should go ahead. Are you on right path, or you need to change your research direction? So that's all. I don't think it's much difficult to do MBA.
Okay, so should I regret getting into MED or not? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your a bit of your MBA. So probably maybe we want to pursue or study in business, master of business administration. I guess we will feel a lot more less challenging than MED, I guess.
Yeah, but of course you have so much reading materials.
Yeah.
So you will fully occupied on reading a lot of materials and find your right strategy, what you are interested in. So because of my management background since last 15-20 years, so for me it was not so difficult because I have seen the planning and other all stuffs.
Right.
Yeah.
Experience what makes it easier or not.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. It's 9:44 p.m. In my place. So I want us. Is there any closing notes from Felix?
Yeah, my closing notes will actually be answering questions, because the answer to the questions are very good closing notes. So the answer to a lot of the questions that I received, I actually received a lot more questions that went straight through my chat box, is that everyone stay calm. Okay. I felt like the questions were mostly on like panicky and, quite, I don't know what I'm doing side. It's okay. That's why this session is held, right? Remember that everything that I shared in this session is done throughout a span of 4 months-ish, right? 2 courses. You don't have to do everything in 1 week, right? You have 4 months to do everything. So you still have time. You got this. And I think I forgot my shameless plug, so I'm going to do that right now. So here's my shameless plug. So if you want to connect with me, you can follow my Instagram, and you can also add me on LinkedIn, and we can connect. And if you do have questions still, you can ask me through Instagram, but please no spamming. And yeah, so that's my closing notes. And feel free to also, maybe Wawa can explain this better, but feel free to also follow all of the social media from University of the People Indonesia student community. I'll give it back to Wawa. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Felix, for your session today. You're sharing a lot of things in a span of almost 2 hours. It's really, really helpful in a way, since probably everyone who come into UoPeople, especially for masters, we're thinking, how do we create our thesis? Is it just the same like we do it in offline campus or not? Those questions will appear on us. And Capstone Project is like the first thing that is so foreign for me. I have not heard Capstone at all on my prior education. So it's a very good session for today. And thank you for Chandan too for sharing a bit about your MBA journey as well, a Capstone journey as well. And Felix, can you show the CU notes? Thank you. Yo, shameless plug. Go follow Felix. Okay, actually, see you in the next corner. Yeah, M.Ed will create more events about education, how learning in UoPeople, about, we've already created an event about written assignment, especially for masters, but I guess for associate and bachelor could also learn about the written assignments in our previous video. It will help you how to write in coherent sentences to create better portfolio. You can go there on that video. In here you can see there we have an Instagram to follow at uisc.id. We also have a LinkedIn page. You can follow the page as well. The page is UoPeople Indonesia Student Community. If you still have questions, like probably you can DM us, but if it's too long or maybe you want to propose a collaboration, you can go straight to our email, uisc.indonesia@gmail.com. And if you want to watch other videos from us that will be updated, also like this video, it will be updated in the YouTube. You can just type UISC with the logo just like this, and you can just follow, just click subscribe and turn on the notifications so you will not miss any updates from us.
Just a quick note on the handout. Because
Alright.
remember I was talking about handouts for this presentation today. So what will happen, I think Wawa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but UISC will send everyone a survey link to give us feedback on this session. And once you fill that in, then we will send the handouts after that. The handouts will contain the slides from the presentation, as well as the rubrics for the research and portfolio presentation and submission, as well as the rubric for the research report. So please fill in the feedback survey to get those goodies.
Yeah, thank you, Felix, for reminding me that. At the end of the submission, you will get a link to download the handout and also with the slides. And now for closing the session, let's take a picture together. Take a pose, everyone. 3. Happy pose. 3. One last time pose. 3. I'm going to say my thanks for all the participants that has joined this session. It really means a lot. It shows how much that we are curious about Capstone, what should we do, and probably answer our worries about how to make it and assure us that we still have times. Do not panic. Just like how we compile our past assignments in folders, we just need, it's not just, but actually we can transfer it to the Evernote. Just do it one step at a time, and do not hesitate to take an LOA if you feel like you need to take one to prepare the portfolio.
Once your capstone start, the first week is more important. So you organize yourself and put all on the research and the contents. Then along the way, your life will be much easier. So don't wait for the last minute.
Yeah, do it. Just like Felix said, do it like exactly right now.
Right now,
if you have it. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. So talking about consent, I will be posting your faces in our Instagram and in our YouTube. So I hope you guys don't mind. We put your faces on there. And if you have one, please follow us and we will try to tag you in the pictures as well. Thank you for tonight. See you in our next corner. See you and goodbye. Good luck for the Capstone and Evernote. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good night.